A hard gainer is a term that describes someone that has a really difficult time putting on weight, more importantly muscle. Now it becomes abundantly clear if you are actually a hard gainer or if you are not. Now you come to this conclusion more than likely on your own. You're in the gym doing what you think are hard workouts, eating what you think is the right food and also the right amount of food. But when it comes to what you're seeing in the mirror, so a visual aspect, and what you're seeing on the scales, which is more of an objective aspect, do not match the effort that you're putting in, and you start to come to conclusions like, this isn't for me, what secrets does everyone else know, is everyone on steroids, and am I really built or made up of the right genetics to be able to put on weight because I'm doing everything I possibly can. Firstly, from an evolutionary standpoint, building muscle is hard. It's very hard, and it's also very expensive. Building muscle takes more and more calories. In nature, calories are very hard to come by. We don't know when that next kill's gonna be. We don't know if we're gonna walk around a corner and find a bush full of berries. So we need to give the body two very good reasons to build muscle. The first of two essential ingredients for you to be able to gain weight, more importantly muscle, is gonna be a calorie surplus. Put simply, if you're not in a calorie surplus, you will not gain weight. It's also on the other end of the spectrum. If you're looking to lose weight and you're not in a calorie deficit, you will not lose weight. So it seems to be quite black and white here. Now, this calorie surplus means eating above your maintenance level of calories. How to find that maintenance? Well, in the description, there's a link for TDEE calculator. Here you're gonna input your age, your weight, your height, your activity level, and your gender. It's gonna spin out a number, a rough calculation, and this is gonna be your maintenance level of calories. From here, you're gonna eat around 100 calories more than that. Follow that for a week, eating that every single day, and if you've gained weight, cool. If it's not broken, don't fix it, don't touch it. Keep eating that same amount of calories until you stop gaining weight and then slightly increase it. When we're increasing it, just try and add an extra 50 or 100 calories because we don't want to exceed that calorie surplus way into the stratosphere because we're going to invite things that we don't want, which in our case is more fat. See, we want to have a calorie surplus that's just a little bit above our maintenance so we're more inclined to build muscle. But you see, it's going to be inevitable that we end up putting on a little bit of fat and a little bit of water. That's why it's your approach that decides and determines your outcome. Because an unbalanced surplus filled with junk foods or a macro plan that you aren't following is going to yield you a result that's visually different than one that has a really balanced and planned macro setup for you. So it's quite clear that the beauty lies within your macros. A great first rule of thumb is 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. So if you weigh 60 kilos, you're having 120 grams of protein per day. 80 kilos, 160 grams per day. Now it's important we understand per day. So next is your carbohydrates. They're your friend. A lot of people demonize rice and potatoes. They are your friends. That's what's gonna make and yield such a great and strong looking physique. It's important that we have these before our workout and after our workout. Then we also have fats. Now fats are an interesting one because although protein and carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, what fats have is 9 calories. So you can start to see that if you're struggling to get into a surplus, maybe having a macro structure that has a leniency towards higher fats is gonna help you achieve that calorie surplus and make it a lot easier because they're higher in calories and they're also much more palatable. But you have to understand that there always is trade-offs. If you have a macro plan that's higher in fats and lower in carbohydrates, it's gonna yield you a different looking physique. But at the end of the day, if you're not hitting that calorie surplus, you're not gonna gain weight. So focus on the first big rocks, which is getting into a calorie surplus. But calories alone will not build you muscle. So the second essential ingredient for gaining weight, more importantly muscle, is going to be a progressive strength training regime. You can't have one and not the other, otherwise muscle growth will stall. You need to give your body a reason, or in this case a stimulus, to grow. It's important that when you're exercising, you're taking these resistance training sessions or the exercises that you're doing close to the proximity of failure. giving your max effort to these things, using a lot of different muscles, pick big movements that move a lot of the body and a lot of the different joints at one time, and constantly try and add a little bit more weight or a little bit more reps each week. If you have 2 days a week to train at the gym, I would be doing 2 full body days, because we want to be able to hit our muscle groups, our pushing movements, our pulling movements, our lower body movements, all these movements at least twice a week, or at least twice within 10 days. If you have 3 days in the gym, a push-pull legs and then repeating that, or you go 3 full body, or you go an upper and a lower and a full body. If you have 4 days in the gym, upper, lower, or maybe it's push-pull legs, full body, maybe it's a different plan you've got, but the idea is taking things close to failure, trying to add weight and reps each week to what you've done the previous week. So having a program, being able to track it, that's also important. But now you're thinking, Toby, I've done that. It's not as simple as just training and eating more food. And you very well might have trained and you might have eaten a little bit more food, but you haven't done it every day. You haven't done enough, and you haven't done it for long enough. Because I want you to understand, it's not about doing this for a day or doing this for a week, doing this for quarter of the year, 6 months of the year, 12 months of the year, understanding that this shit takes time, especially if it's done well. And to do it well, we need to make sure that we're not doing these 2 mistakes that a lot of people make. That first mistake is they're not tracking their calories. We need to gain clarity around how much we're actually eating. So using something like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer gives us clarity around how much calories we're actually eating, because we're inputting it down. Because far too often, most people aren't even in a maintenance level of calories, they're in a calorie deficit. We need to be exceeding that maintenance, and to do that, we need to gain clarity around how much we're eating, because if it's not measurable, it's not manageable. Moving on to the second mistake would be breakfast. A lot of people skip breakfast. We need to understand that if we have 16 hours to eat food, then we need to make sure that we're trying to eat as much food as we can in that 16 hours. A lot of people love to fast. The problem that I find with fasting is that you're reducing your window, you're restricting your eating window from, say, 16 hours, providing we have 8 hours of sleep, down to like 8 hours or even less. And it's much, much more difficult for you to get that calorie surplus in a much shorter amount of time. I don't think the benefits of fasting, whatever they may be, is more important than getting that breakfast in. And you're probably thinking, but I don't enjoy breakfast. I'm never hungry at breakfast. I feel like I'm force feeding myself. You very much will be, because we have systems and these rhythms within our body, circadian rhythms. Now you may notice sometimes when you eat food at a certain time, you're not hungry, but then right up until that time, you begin to salivate and your body's getting prepared to eat that food because it eats it at a regular time. So you're not hungry for breakfast because you don't eat breakfast. So eat breakfast for 7-10 days, and I guarantee you, after 11 days or 2 weeks or whatever, you'll wake up and you'll go, fuck dude, I'm actually hungry. I could smash a breakfast burrito. And it's that moment when we're able to get 500, 600, 700, 800 calories or something for breakfast. It makes the process of getting in that, 24, 25, 3,000 calories in for the day much, much easier. So to wrap all of this up in a nice little bow, carbohydrates are going to be your friend. We need to make sure we're getting 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And if you're struggling to get into your calorie surplus, it's important that we add in a little bit more fats, because they're higher in calories and they're also much more palatable. You need to be getting in a strength and resistance training program or regime. It's going to be the important stimulus for your body to actually allocate these new resources and these building blocks, the food, the calories, to the right locations and use them to build the muscle. Meal prep is going to make this whole process much easier. So it's not about making breakfast, lunch and dinner for 7 days a week. Just focus on the hardest meal, the meal that you struggle with the most. For a lot of people, that is just their lunchtime at work. So it helps you save money, it helps you eat aligned with your goals, and it helps you eat something that's tasty and that's not, guesswork when it comes to tracking these weights. So more importantly, if you are struggling with this continuously, if you have any questions, I have affordable weekly coaching down below in the description, and you can also put in a comment. I'm very active and I'll respond to you straight away. Enjoy.